Hey guys, welcome back to Your House Fitness. Today we're going to go over the barbell front squat, one of my favorite exercises for growing the quads. There are many prerequisites though. I highly recommend you guys getting sussed out long before you get under this bar. If you guys don't goblet squat, if you guys don't know how to squat period, you better get in there and start working on it. You want comfortable wrist mobility and ankle mobility. I'll give you some suggestions though if you really struggle on getting those few parts mobile or you don't have a lot of experience to help you with the squat. I'll kind of cue you guys through it. First and foremost, I highly recommend knowing how to bail first and knowing how to keep yourself safe before you get under a bar. People get hurt all the time. I highly recommend also using pins. We don't have the pins on for this video for demonstration purposes, but we have them right here. Last I checked, this rack can hold more weight than my whole body. So I'm gonna ideally trust in this rack to keep me safe when I'm training and barbell lifting. But if you guys don't know how to bail a front squat, it's very simple. I'll explain it maybe later on, but all you need to do is tilt your chest and hop back a little bit. The bar will fall right on the floor. I'm sure you got to be careful which gym you go to when you do this. You don't want to drop it on someone's foot. But I think most people wouldn't mind you slamming some weight as long as you protect yourself and you stay safe and no one around you is getting hurt when you bail. But before I get under the bar, I always teach my clients how to bail, how to land on the pin safely, and how to just restart and get back up and train again. Now, let's get into the front squat finally. There are a few ways to grip this bar. I will be going under it right now. I'm going to show you the front rack position, which is the much more traditional way of doing a front squat. I'll show you then the crossed arm variant as well, which will be much nicer for people who struggle with wrist mobility or have some shoulder pain. The front rack position typically comprises your fingers and hands being slightly wider than shoulder width, just a little bit. Honestly, for me, I don't have the broadest shoulders, so I kind of line up with the smooth of the bar and I just go a few inches out. This will really be dependent on the person, how many fingers you wrap around the bar. I personally have varying degrees of wrist mobility depending on how sore I am throughout the week. If I do a heavy pull day, I'm not going to have the best wrist mobility, so I might not be able to lock all 5 fingers, but in a perfect world, you should be able to get all 5 fingers across. But the most important fingers are typically your big finger, ring finger, and your middle. All right, so as long as you've got 3 or 2 fingers on there and your thumb across, you're relatively safe. Now, one other key factor is really good shoulder mobility and thoracic mobility. If your chest cannot stay up when you're squatting, or your arms drop a lot when you're squatting, I'd highly recommend you sussing that out first beforehand, as that is the main part where people fail. Their chest falls over, their hands fall down, their elbows give out, and then the bar just falls. So we're gonna start with a good rack position. So I got my fingers lined up. And now, this is super important. You know what I was just saying right before, people drop the bar all the time? That's because they also put it in their hands and not the top of their collarbone. So I get this 1/2 shoulder blade position. I'm gonna start stepping under the bar, right, to get under it. And I'm gonna line up the middle of my sternum, the left backside of my anterior delt, right here, and the backside of my anterior delt here, okay? Some people specifically will put it on their joint, right? They'll get it on their AC joint specifically, but I know some guys have really gnarly AC joint pain when they do this, so everyone's a little bit different. So find that position. Just as long as it's behind the delt, you're relatively safe, okay? Don't get too specific with it. So here, I step under, and I line those 3 positions up. Collarbone, and the bar's resting right behind my anterior delt on both shoulders. Elbows very tall, chest tall, and I squat up first. I want to clear the J-hooks as the very first step. All right, a lot of times I see really awkward setups, and that's because they don't clear the hook and they catch themselves on the lip of the hook here and they end up stumbling. They gotta reset. So make sure you squat up all the way first. Don't start with your walkout. All right, squat up first. So I get under the bar, elbows tall, 3 points of contact, squat, boom. Very simple. I may adjust. You might have seen there, pull my head back a little bit just to really reinforce it on top of my collarbone. Once I'm in this front rack, I gotta clear the J hooks. In my case, I'm gonna be walking forward. You guys will most likely be walking back away from the rack. I highly recommend 2 to 3 steps maximum. The first step clears you, and then the second one places you in your squat stance. You can do that in 3, right? So let's say I squatted back up. I can step out, right foot stance, left foot stance. I personally like doing it in 2. You can do it in 3, but no more than 2 and 3. From here, you just have to do a front squat, all right? That's the easiest part, actually. I'm not going to lie to you, but it's very easy to break your technique throughout the motion. So I'm going to take that deep breath in. I'm going to hinge my hips slightly. And I'm just going to squat right between my 2 heels, and my knees are going to go out to the side like a ballerina doing a plie. Like that. I push through the floor and extend my hips forward. Ideally, my elbows do not change levels. 2. Take that deep breath in. I'm going to fix my chest. Knees out. 3. I think my elbows dropped a little bit, so I'm going to work on keeping up on the next rep. 4. I was a little shaky, so I'm going to brace a little bit harder, and that should clean things up. And when I'm done, I take those 2 steps back. I like hitting the rack, so I know I'm safe before I put it back down. I don't have to worry about having a mini heart attack because I missed the hook. You hit the rack, you go slide straight down. Most of the time, you'll be safe. Few things you may have noticed there. I was very technical, even with my own approach to the front squat. I think it's such a high skill move that I'm always very analytical of what I'm doing. I notice if I'm off balance a little bit, if I may be dropping my elbows a bit. And that's just because a very technical exercise are gonna bring out some of your own technical flaws. And if you work on those things, your front squat will get very, very pretty. It's gonna look really aesthetic and can lift more and more. I could easily just say, oh, whatever, that looked good. I'm gonna throw on some more weight. But I'm realistically, I have such a bad technical base that I'm not gonna squat super, super heavy on the front squat. So I highly recommend you guys practicing and getting really good at the front squat by itself before you worry about loading it up like crazy. Let me give you a few variations. I think I have 2. Sometimes people do not have the lat and wrist mobility for that front rack position. So you may have seen this crossed arm position. Completely valid, works just as well. I just notice sometimes when I'm training, the arm on the bottom will dip, right? And once this arm dips, there's not a frame holding my 2 arms together, then this arm will dip, and people, I notice a lot. People tend to fall with their elbows when you're doing the crossed arm position. So the idea of keeping your elbows very tall and chest tall applies to both variations, whether you are crossing your grip or going to front rack. Also, when you're crossing your grip, you can just hug it into your collarbone, like so. Some people will get their thumbs under it, and it's gonna be pinched between the spaces of their collarbone and the bar, all right? Lastly, this is a really interesting variation, and is a good way just to test your thoracic stability. You go no hands, and you just purely rely on your front rack, just like so. And we call this a zombie squat or a Frankenstein squat because your arms are out like so. All right, this is a really advanced variation. I wouldn't recommend you doing this on your first time around, but it's a good way just to suss out where you feel that balance of the bar on your chest. Few things I highly recommend also, if you're struggling with front squat, take some time and do some mobility work. You can practice your front squat, but if you have no ankle mobility, you struggle with the front rack position, you're gonna have a very, very tough time progressing here. So take a minute out of your day, maybe a couple, to really warm up into this. Stretch out your wrist flexors, stretch out your lats, mobilize your thoracic spine, and loosen up your ankles beforehand, and practice your squat movement itself, all right? The front squat is a challenging exercise for most, but I think it's very rewarding once you get it down. And once you're good at the front squat, it's just a fantastic quad builder. It's not so harsh on your lower back compared to other variations as well. I would say if you do a lot of front squats, watch out for your knees. It's a lot of knees over toe when you're doing a front squat. Perfectly safe and perfectly fine for most people if you have no pain. But if it starts hurting, pull back a little bit. Maybe take some time off. Work on how much you can actually squat low without pain, you know? And every day is going to be a bit different. You know, some days I feel really good. I just get on the bar and I feel super explosive. And other days it takes me a couple of sets to really warm up into the front squat. But take your time, find your pace, and you guys will have great success doing this. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time.